It is game week, but it's a short game week here on Six Rings and Football Things, Cadlick's Crucial Clashes Edition. We're sticking with the name. I don't care how not crucial the game or the clashes are
So
at
bad
this
now.
point.
It's so bad now.
It is, but you know what? You finish. This is football. You put your four fingers up and you finish the damn game.
Damn
We're going
right.
to finish the damn season. Maybe we'll reevaluate next year what we should call this podcast. But for now, we're sticking with it. Patriots headed to Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers. Thursday Night Football, we know when they were first hyping the game, the promo for Amazon Prime had Bill Belichick versus TJ Watt, and they were somewhat prescient because since then, the Steelers have even lost their starting QB. So Thursday night will be Mitchell Trubisky against Bailey Zappe in a showdown of two teams that really can't score points, in the bottom four in the league in points scored. Each is very much capable of putting up single digits on any given game. The over number is currently 30.5. I think there's a chance this plays in the 20s, the high 20s, because I think everybody's probably banging the hell out of the under right now because you should, because it's two bad offenses. One where they fired their offensive coordinator 2 weeks ago, got a little bump after that, but now you lose your quarterback. And then obviously the Patriots are whatever the hell they are at this point. So let's start there before we get into the true clashes. Mike Cadlick from weei.com. I want to start with Rhamondre Stevenson. We saw he was chugging right along, 40 yards right out the gates last week, and then had that hip drop tackle issue where he goes to the sideline with apparently a high ankle sprain, reportedly going to miss a few weeks. So he's not going to play in this game, obviously. Probably your best offensive player remaining. Add him to the list of your best players don't get to play in games with Matthew Judon, Christian Gonzalez, Kendrick Bourne, Demario Douglas et al. Wouldn't it be smart to just not play Rhamondre Stevenson the rest of the year?
Yep. That's my take on this whole thing is shut him down, lock him up, do not put him back on the field, start his full off-season rehab program yesterday, went Monday, really, when they came back or, when they finished that game, it's like, okay, you're done. High ankle sprain. It's not a good injury. It's something that he could re-aggravate when he comes back and plays again. And you're 2-10. You're not technically. And I saw a graphic floating on Twitter yesterday that there is a chance that the Patriots make the playoffs if they win out and this XYZ combination happens. It's not going to happen. Their season's over from a, I guess, bigger picture goals perspective. Like you're not going to make the postseason. So your best player on offense, you might as well shut him down. If he does go on IR, it's a 4-week thing. They have 5 games left. You might as well just IR him, get a roster spot, see what else you have. Elevate Kevin Harris this week, let him play, see what you have in him, and go from there. I think it would be not wise at all to play Rhamondre Stevenson for the rest of the season. I think you should.
Agreed. I think you put him at risk, but also you put the number 2 overall pick at risk or the number 1 because any given game, I do think he's still capable of rushing for $140, $150, maybe winning a game for you. And at this point, I think most of us have accepted you don't want that. And hell, find out what Kevin Harris is. Can Kevin Harris be the backup next year? Because Ezekiel Elliott may not be here. Who knows? The flip side of that is I did want to just real quick, and I did this post-game a little bit on the Six Rings podcast. Ezekiel Elliott has been a revelation, a tremendous veteran addition. I'm sure he did not envision being on a 2-win team in December when he landed in New England with his buddy, Rhamondre Stevenson. I think that was part of it too. But last week, he takes over. And I'm not saying he put forth like some classic Zeke game or whatever.
No,
but
not at all.
He has been everything you could ask for in a veteran backup running back. Supportive, like made plays. They were basically in a 66%, 33% split kind of reps, carries, everything. And he was trending much like Rhamondre over the last month. He was running better. Production was up. So I love what he's done. If I were him, I wouldn't want to be here next year. I'd want to be,
in Kansas City,
Kansas City or the 49ers or like just Miami, like a good team where you could back up and have a nice role on probably a playoff contender type team. But I do think Ezekiel Elliott deserves his praise. Let's get to the quarterback position. So Bailey Zappe played. Bailey Zappe didn't score, but he didn't turn the ball over. So that's a net. I don't know if that's a net positive, net negative, or net nothing. Probably a net nothing. What were your thoughts on Bailey Zappe's performance? What were your thoughts on? I mean, I think everybody knew he was going to start this week, but his reaction when asked was like, "Bill's made it quite clear, but I'll let him announce it." It's just the whole Bailey Zappe experience over the last 3 or 4 days.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting. It's fun to follow, I guess. Not fun, but it adds another element to this really dreary 2-10 season. Like, a quarterback change, you talk to somebody new, you see how they react. I thought he was great on our airwaves with Jones and
Yep.
Mega the other day. Like his interview is just has a little bit more juice to it. Maybe it's just a different voice, but Mac really towed the company line over, especially when they would lose over the last 6-7 weeks with that show. And Zappe was new and refreshed and kind of had some fun with it. So he's interesting to listen to. As far as like, I know that doesn't really matter, but that's just kind of my take on it from the radio perspective. On the game, or on the game that he played on Sunday, incredibly conservative. Obviously, like they didn't really try too much. They tried a couple deep shots to Parker, a couple of them hit, a couple of them didn't. Thought he made a nice throw to Tyquan Thornton. He dropped it. Tyquan Thornton, man, he needs help like in the route running department. And I don't think Troy Brown brings that to them. Troy, love him. Thought he was a great Patriots legend, but as a wide receivers coach, I just don't think he has it. And then the one play where Tyquan actually does run a good route, he drops the pass that Bailey put on his hands. So tough all around, I think. Again, it's good, I guess, that you didn't have turnovers from the quarterback position, but you need to score points. And when I spoke with Nesson's Dakota Randall for the Six Rings beat reporter chat, I talked to him yesterday. It'll come out on the feed later in the week. He basically said that, and I kind of agree with him. If Mac Jones played that game against the Chargers, the Patriots might have won because there would have been a little bit more aggression. They might have been able to, for better or for worse, he might have tried something that actually could have went good. It also could have went bad and could have been a crazy, Mac Jones interception that we've seen. But overall, tough to not score points. I think he saw the pocket better. He, kind of, read and reacted to the rush a little bit better than we've seen Mac. He didn't panic. But at the end of the day, you need to score points in this league, and they didn't do that. So I don't know. It's just kind of where we're at with this team right now.
Yeah, and I do agree. Like if Mac plays that game, you probably get in the red zone, and then he might turn it over in the red zone. You never got in the. Which would you rather do? Never get in the red zone or turn it over when you get that? I don't even. Neither is good. Neither is good enough in the NFL. The question I wanted to ask you, because I've seen our buddy Tom Curran floating this over on Quick Slants and sort of the discussion of the quarterback situation moving forward. Mm-hmm. We all know they need a starter. We all know they need maybe a veteran, maybe a top 2 or 3 pick, whatever the details are of the offseason. But his question is, should Mac be back? He's on a cheap deal. And I think you can ask the same, depending on how Zappe plays over the next 5 games, could he be your veteran that you bring back for, to compete with a rookie or compete with another, whatever? If I had to make you decide right now, Bailey Zappe and Mac Jones, both are back in 2024. Neither is back in 2024, or tell me which one could be back in 2024.
Oh man. I mean, they're both under contract, and I find it hard to believe they're going to cut. They might cut Zappe, because they already did it this year.
Yep.
If I had to guess right now, I'd say Mac's probably back. I know, but man, I don't know, because they could trade him if they want to, and he wants out, and they kind of agree to part ways. New coaching staff comes in, but again, with what Karen said, he's under contract, so he's cheap. He could be a bridge guy. I think that everything Mac has done since the benching, aside from not coming out for warmups on Sunday, which I thought was pretty odd, I think he's taken it on the chin. Like, I think he's handled it well. I think the things he said when he said them, both in press conferences on radio, he says it's his fault. He understands the decision. And again, aside from not being out there for warmups, he was in Zappe's ear, and he was kind of, there were some times where he would kind of wander off on the sideline. I kept an eye on it to see how he reacted, but he seemed pretty engaged on the sideline, like talking to Bill O'Brien, watching them. And Zappe said it the other day that Mac was in his ear, saying what he saw and whatnot. And so the other thing I saw from Mac, which I thought was pretty cool, was when Stevenson went down, Mac was one of the first guys on the field to check on him, make sure it was okay. So again, that's just little things. But my point being, he's a good teammate. He cares about the guys here. So if he was asked and there was no trade market and value for him on the open market, then I could see him coming back and kind of wearing it and be like, okay, this is my job and this is what I'm going to do. So if I had to guess right now, I guess I'll say Mac is back and Zappe's gone. I don't really know how it works, but I think you'd probably be better off with Mac Jones being your backup quarterback than Bailey Zappe.
Yeah, I think, I mean, it's a tough question because
Yeah.
A, it's a long ways away. B, we don't know what happens down the stretch this season. For all I know, Mac gets forced back in there and looks good for 3 games. And maybe that alters the opinions. Maybe he somehow learned from having to watch for a couple of weeks. I don't know. Maybe Malik Cunningham is out there in a week. And maybe there's a lot of layers. And you mentioned the coaching staff. If a new coaching staff comes in, that in and of itself is kind of a new beginning and a fresh start, right? So maybe the change of scenery, well, maybe the scenery around him changes, so that allows him to stay.
A decent example and a guy I look at like with that is Alex Smith from the 49ers, who was the biggest bust, one of the biggest busts in NFL history when he was in San Francisco under Mike Singletary. I think they went like 1-11. He didn't throw a touchdown. He threw like 15 picks his rookie year, whatever. That those numbers might be exaggerated, but the point being was he was awful for the first few years of his career. They bring in Jim Harbaugh. They draft Colin Kaepernick a year or two later, I think. But Harbaugh came in, and Alex Smith was a completely different quarterback. He took him. He didn't move off him. He took him and molded him into the 10-year vet that Alex Smith ended up being. At the beginning, it looked like his career was over. So you're right. A change of scenery, new coach, same place could be what Mac Jones needs.
And I'm not saying they fully invest in him. Like, it wouldn't stop them from bringing in a veteran or bringing in a top 3 pick. I'm just saying, if Bill Belichick and Bill O'Brien are gone, maybe we know Robert Kraft has been, quote, a fan of Mac Jones's over the years here. So it's an interesting situation. I like Bailey Zappe's demeanor. Like, I think he's brought a positive energy over the last week. I don't think he's very good. Like, I don't think there's much upside there to him as a player, which is obviously the end goal. You can have all the energy and positivity in the world, but if you can't score a single point when you play offense for your team, then there's no value in it. But obviously, lots could change in the coming weeks. Okay, so let's get into this game because, well, why not? It's a game, and we're paid to get into it and have matchups.
Definitely going to be a quicker pod and quicker column here because it's tough to get into, especially on a short week.
Yeah, no, you have 2 offenses that don't score a lot of points. The Patriots, we know. The Steelers have 5 games with less than 10 points or 10 points or less themselves. They're 0-5 in those games. They're 7-0 in their other games. They're a 7-5 football team. Mike Tomlin sort of in line for another one of his mediocre but doesn't have a losing season. I think they have questions about the quarterback position, even when Pickett is healthy. Certainly defensively, they can play. They're I think they're top 6
they're
points allowed.
Yep.
So, I mean, they're a good defense built around TJ Watt with his 14 sacks. But the thing that jumped off the paper to me is they are tied for second in the NFL in turnovers, plus 10, 20 takeaways, 12 interceptions spread around 10 different guys. So, like, there's always a guy getting his hand on the ball. And I think Bailey Zappe, even though we just talked about Bailey Zappe didn't turn it over last week, from what I've seen over the last couple of years, Bailey Zappe generally gives the opposition a chance to touch the football.
100%.
If you do that to the Steelers, they're going to catch the football more often than not, and that could be the difference in the game. But let's start to break this down. 2 bad offenses, low-scoring affair as expected. It's a night game at Three Rivers. Not Three Rivers, but I'm not going to say whatever the new name of it is. Heinz Field, Three Rivers. I'm not calling it the new one. Right there with it can be wind. There can be issues with kickers and young quarterbacks and bad quarterbacks. So what is Cadlick's first crucial clash for this Thursday night football affair?
So first and foremost, I'm looking at the best player in the game in TJ Watt, taking on one probably Mike Onwenu at right tackle. Because, look, Onwenu has been, the epitome of versatile and consistent over the last 4 years since he's been a Patriot. Drafted him in 2020, 6th-round pick, moved all across the line, played everywhere but center, and has really played well every time he's been called upon to sort of switch it up. Last week, I know you noted this in your thumbs up, thumbs down. He was a thumbs down. He didn't play well. We talked about it on the post-game show as well. He probably, moving forward might and should end up as a guard. He's good at tackle. He's great at guard. This has kind of been the back and forth with him, the last year plus. Like, if you don't have a right tackle, you might as well use him there because he's good and figure out the inside. But at the end of the day, if you can get a right tackle here, move Onwenu to guard, pay him, whatever. But again, that's a conversation for another day. The point being, he struggled against Khalil Mack. Khalil Mack ends up with 2 sacks, a bunch of pressures. I think only one was attributed to Onwenu, but regardless, he was subpar against a top player in the NFL. Now he has to play an even better player in the NFL in TJ Watt. Like you mentioned, 14 sacks. Best player in this game, one of the best players in the NFL. Dominant year in, year out, just like his brother was. Like, I think you could argue that he's going to end up better than JJ when it's all said and done. That kid's he's just a beast, and he's resilient, and he gets hurt and he comes back and he doesn't quit. And I'm just kind of watching to see not only Onwenu, I'm going to write it as Onwenu versus TJ Watt, but really, Watt's going to line up all over the place, especially if Trent Brown doesn't play, which we were talking about before the show. Trent Brown was at practice on Tuesday, but kind of just stood there and watched Willow's helmet on. So they only ended up practicing for 30 minutes. He wound up being limited, but he might not have done anything besides stretch. So it wouldn't shock me if Trent Brown doesn't even play in this game. So how does this Patriots offensive line that has struggled this season against pressure with Bailey Zappe, who has done a little bit better than Mac Jones against pressure, at least last week, but how do they mitigate TJ Watt, the best player in the game? That's what I'm going to keep my eye on that side of the ball.
Yeah. I mean, I know you're not supposed to admit, you love somebody I love TJ Watt. Like, he is that combination of high motor, high talent. And I also think I was reading some of the quotes. He's been bitching about getting held, comparing it to Shaq. Wouldn't surprise me if he buys himself a couple calls this week on one of the Patriots offensive linemen because he's bitching about it. Refs are maybe a little more attuned to it. And you noted it, like Connor McDermott kind of struggled a little bit at times last week when he was, first of all, they struggled to swap out. They had a 12-men penalty when they swapped out. Classic 2023, 2022 type Patriot maneuver there. But I just, you're right. And Watt, he may be inside at times. David Andrews, sneaky struggled last week, I thought. Cole Strange. This should be a matchup that benefits him because everybody tells me he can't deal with the big, Quinn and Williams types. Well, if Watt's in front of you, he's not bigger than you. Can you use your athleticism to deal with him? I don't feel great about that. So the game wrecker tag that people put on, TJ Watt can be a game wrecker. And this offensive line, I think, just showed last week with Khalil Mack, and it's capable of giving up game wreckers. So if you're going to pick one matchup in a game that doesn't have a ton of star power, and that's take the best player in the game against a unit that we've talked about from July 28th on as a major issue for the Patriots, even though it felt like a couple weeks ago it settled in a little, like Trent Brown was out there on when it was at right tackle. We started to get a false sense of security and capability from the line. Now it feels like,
and they played well. Sorry to cut you off, but they played well against the Bills, who had the best pass rush in football, the most sacks, and they scored 29 points. That game was just such an anomaly. But that was one of the tipping point. Was maybe they've sort of figured it out.
Yeah, I'm not sure they figured it out. I don't know what the number is. I haven't looked for a player prop if it's like a half sack or a sack and a half, but I'd feel pretty confident putting a couple units down on TJ Watt on the over for sack totals. Okay. Mike Kadlick, weei.com. Kadlick's Crucial Clashes. Number 2 for this once great rivalry game that probably has Tom Brady rolling in his career grave thinking I used to score 30 against those guys by myself. Never mind the game total. What's next on our list?
Yeah, a night game in Pittsburgh at the old Heinz Field was Brady's
classic.
Yeah, classic.
Dick LeBeau's defense. Ooh, you do what you do. I do what I do. I score points. Now we got 2 teams that couldn't score points if you spotted them. The POI.
Yeah, there's no ketchup bottle. There's nothing. It's you want me to say it? Acrisure Stadium. Is that what it's called?
No, we're not doing that. I don't even know what that is. We're not doing that. I'm not giving them the publicity that they paid tens of millions for.
Yeah, right. All right, number 2. So you mentioned it. This Steelers defense, at its core, is one of the better units in football. They let up just 19 points per game, 6th overall in the NFL. But when you break it down into run defense, pass defense, both units are kind of subpar as far as yards per game. They let you have it, and then they shut you down, like you said. Turnovers in the red zone, what have you. They only obviously allow 19.1 points per game. But what I'm looking at in this one is the Patriots pass catchers against the Steelers secondary, because, you mentioned that secondary, but they have guys, Minkah Fitzpatrick, rookie Joey Porter Jr., Patrick Peterson, Keanu Neal, DeMonte Casey, like all these guys who, they actually have, I'm pretty sure Casey, Keanu Neal, and somebody else that, I'm blanking on the top of my head, but like they have a bunch of older Atlanta Falcons defensive backs when they had a pretty good unit, and they've sort of brought them in. So I don't know if there's any changeover in like the defensive back coaching department that brought them in, but regardless, some solid pieces in that secondary that can really throw you off. And again, Bailey Zappe last week threw for less than 150 yards. They didn't score. The wide receivers don't separate. They have, an ailing Juju Smith-Schuster, a Tyquan Thornton that can't run routes, and a Devontae Parker who literally, he's pretty good at the jump balls, I'll admit that. But even last week, he couldn't keep his feet in bounds. And, we were talking about the other day, they'll be down 6-0 and not score a point, and then he'll have one 18-yard catch, which is good for him. Then he does that shoulder shrug, and he's like, yeah, and it's like, what are we doing here? But so, and again, I don't want to, I guess I am making fun of him a little bit, but it's just it's kind of silly when you're down 6-0 and your team stinks. But what have you? I'm keeping an eye on this matchup because the run defense with the Steelers, obviously, they allow 121 yards a game, but you're missing Rhamondre. They might shut that down. Zeke might play well. Zeke's pretty good in this stadium. A couple years ago, I think it was his rookie year, he went off against the Steelers at the old Heinz Field. But really, I think it's going to come down to with scoring points and beating the Steelers team. It's going to come down to what Bailey Zappe can do in the passing game if they take the ropes off a little bit and let him be less conservative and try and sling it. You got to worry about all those defensive backs with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
So Zappe's going to need help. He's not, just going to carry. He's not Josh Allen. So right. If I made you pick one guy, two guys from this kind of mass of complementary options, mediocre options, is there anybody you feel like there's any positive momentum due for and I'm not saying, Jamar Chase 11 for 140 or something. I'm saying, is there anybody due for 6 catches for 78 yards or something?
Honestly, I'll say Devontae Parker. Again, and he kind of did it last week. I think he had 6 for right. Get the whole thing.
You can only imagine how much he'll sell.
Yeah, right. But even last year, he had a couple 10 for 100 games. I think last year, he went over 100 once or twice, and so. And if it's going to be someone to do it, it's going to be Zappe, who has actually had a decent connection with him on the deep ball. And you saw it last week, and you saw it last year. So, maybe I could see Parker going for, like you said, 8 for 90. But that could also put them at risk of a few interceptions, because Zappe does get trigger happy in that. And you saw it in Germany when he threw that one down the middle of the pop, and there was 8 guys there. He threw it into a team meeting. So. If there is one guy, I do think it's going to be Parker, because I just don't see it with Juju. Hunter Henry, he's going to end up being covered by Minkah Fitzpatrick, and that's just probably not going to go well. And then Tamario Douglas probably isn't going to play. He didn't practice yesterday. He's out with a concussion. So they're going to struggle passing the football again. But if there's one guy to answer your question, I think Parker could maybe, have a little bit of success here.
So just touching on it real quick, because you mentioned Ezekiel Elliott, I think we're likely to have a running back promotion from the practice squad.
Yeah.
Whether it coincides with a move with Stevenson or not, I think you need another running back on the roster. Do you think it's my guy, Kevin Harris? Is it whoever that other guy is? Michael, what's his name?
Michael Hasty?
Michael, yeah. Who do you think could get – somebody's got to get some touches, I would think.
I think it's going to be Kevin Harris.
Ooh, nice. I like him.
Yeah. Hasty is – I know. Hasty's more of a change of pace third down back. He's on the active roster, but he's been a game day scratch every week. He's just not that
I probably should know that he was on the active roster. I did not know that.
Jesus they put in a waiver claim for him a few weeks ago. He's on the roster. He just hasn't actually played. Ty Montgomery is another guy who, again, he's a third down, special teamer, pseudo wide receiver type guy. I don't see him being second in line to Zeke, just like I don't see Hasty being that.
Okay. So you
which
got
is why
Kevin Harris and his big old thighs.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why I think they'll elevate Kevin Harris.
Let's
And
go.
he played well when he got the chance last year. He played pretty well against Arizona in that game. Him and Pierre Strong kind of had their breakouts in that game. Obviously, Pierre Strong's gone and Kevin Harris didn't make the roster. But regardless, I would be kind of surprised if they don't elevate Kevin Harris before tomorrow's game because they need another sort of bowling ball back to take the carries off of Zeke.
Okay, see, in this world of small victories or little things to look forward to, I look forward to seeing maybe Kevin Harris. Now, I also look forward to the tweets coming at me. I thought you liked Kevin Harris. This guy sucks. He's averaging negative -2 yards a carry or something. Like that could happen too. I don't rule that out.
Every time when James Robinson, is that his name? James Robinson gets cut in practice squad, I always tweeted at you like that.
You a-holes on Twitter. You're all the same. Okay. So Cadlick's crucial clash is number 3 in a game where I'm surprised you were able to go 3 deep here. What is third on your list?
Well, we are grasping at straws here, but it is. I'm looking to see how Bill Belichick, and I use this a lot, but it sort of kind of goes with how the Patriots want to win games. But it's how Belichick and this defense take on the opposing quarterback. And this week it's Mitch Trubisky. Trubisky was the former number 2 overall pick. You know the drill by now. He's gone around. He was the starter. He got paid, and then Pickett came in, and whatever. But I'll be curious to see how they sort of take him out because this Patriots defense is playing outstanding football. They have allowed 10, 10, and 6 the last 2 weeks, and they are 0-3. Every time they're asked about it, you liked, and I know you liked Jalen Mills quote the other day, like 6, not good enough. We lost by 6. We got to do better. And good for them to take it on the chin. I don't know how much more they're going to be able to do that. And how much frustration sort of boils over. But I thought it was interesting too. Jabril Peppers this week or last week, whenever said no, Belichick tells us, what to be prepared for, what's in front of us. And he knows that this is going to happen. And every week we outline the game. Belichick tells us what's going to happen and we don't execute it. And I thought that was kind of interesting to okay, no, Bill Belichick, the coach, is still really, really, good and important and good at game planning. How it all, lines up and unfolds with personnel and what have you is a different story. But my point being is they're going to have a plan for Mitch Trubisky, who isn't that great of a quarterback, with a new offensive coordinator who doesn't have a ton of reps with these guys. The other thing I'll say too, and it sort of has to do with the offense overall with the Steelers, we haven't touched on it yet, but Najee Harris didn't practice yesterday for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I don't know if he'll end up playing Thursday. It could have been a rest day. It could just kind of get right. But their backup running backs, Jalen Warren, who's had a pretty good year too. But at the end of the day, you might be working with a backup quarterback and a backup running back here against the Patriots defense that has really balled out over the last few weeks. So it's going to be low scoring. It's no doubt about that. We were talking about it beforehand about betting the under. I think I'm going to have to do it this week. There's not going to be a lot of points scored, and how they shut down and figure out Mitch Trubisky with a new offensive coordinator is something I'm going to keep an eye on for sure.
Yeah, you may have heard, so on the Rich Keefe show, I talk a lot about the Celtics, and I feel like I can, if you just show me the box score and I look at the 3-point shooting and the turnovers, I can pretty much tell you whether the Celtics won or lost that game. It's a pretty simple measuring stick. When they shoot 20-something% and turn it over 15 times, they lose. When they shoot, north of 30 and they take care of the basketball, they almost always win. I think this is going to be sort of a simple statistical game where probably turnovers and red zone. If I just look at those two things, A, did anybody get in the red zone? B, did they, God forbid, score a touchdown when they got in the red zone? And where's if the Steelers play their style and are plus 2 or 3 in the turnover department, they're going to win the football game almost regardless of everything else that goes on. There could be some details, like Chad Ryland could miss a kick at the open end of the stadium, or there could be some other factors, but I do feel like this is a pretty simple game about turnovers and red zone. And the Mitch Trubisky thing, I mean, he's a backup journeyman. He's part of the reason some Patriots fans don't want Drake May, because God forbid you draft a North Carolina quarterback who wore the same jersey. That means the next guy couldn't possibly be good or better or different.
Even though Trubisky played 12 games at UNC and Drake Mays played 30 something.
Right. It never made any sense to me, but he was a bust as a number 2 pick. So
here's my question. Is he that much worse than Kenny Pickett?
Oh, I don't think so. I think they are a team without a quarterback. I definitely think, and unlike the Patriots, I think if you put a average to above average quarterback on that team, I think they're pretty good. I think,
Yeah.
you have 2 running backs. I know Najee Harris has been a disappointment as sort of a workhorse and what he was supposed to be out of Alabama, but Warren is more explosive. They have a tandem. Pickens is a pretty good receiver. Like, they have some talent there, and certainly defensively, I feel like if you put a better quarterback on that team, all of a sudden those games I talked about, 0-5, when they can't score more than 10 points. Okay, so you scored 15 or 20 and you probably win all those games. And now suddenly you're like a 12-win, 11-win football team. So, yeah, I think they're in that mediocre land where, when do they realize they don't have a quarterback? At what point do they realize maybe they should go get somebody? But yeah, these are the backup quarterbacks, 2 teams without quarterbacks, 2 teams with good defenses, old school football. Maybe we'll get some numbers that compare to the 38 Cardinals or the whatever, like we've been getting in recent weeks, where
those are the Chicago Cardinals, right?
Yeah,
the 1938 Chicago Cardinals.
But you're right,
Love
low
that
scoring.
team.
I mean, it's so obvious that it's going to be low scoring. It's almost like the football gods are going to say, "Oh, I'll show you," and it's going to end up like 35-32 or something because crazy crap happens. But I wouldn't put my money on that. So, 3 crucial clashes in the books. That means Mike Cadlick is now prepared to make a pick in this football game for a Patriots team that, well, they don't score any points and they haven't been able to win games of late. So the Bailey Zappe experience, we thought maybe you'd get a Bailey bump last week. That never happened. Maybe Bailey bump comes in prime time on Thursday night.
No, doesn't happen. No, I'm sorry. I don't even know
what happened to the positive guy. What happened to Mr.
What am I supposed to do with this team? Are you kidding me, man? Like week after week, it's
a good quote. That's the promo right there. 31 something. What am I supposed to do with this?
Yeah. I mean, seriously, it's tough. And I say it every single week until I see it. I can't back them. So, like you said, old-fashioned, hard-nosed defensive football, cold, Pittsburgh, yellow seats, terrible towels. It's going to be – the aesthetic will be cool. The game itself is probably not going to be that exciting. I'm going to go Steelers win 10-3, low scoring. Patriots, again, don't score a touchdown. Steelers get in once, kick a field goal. But, with the way the Steelers are playing defense at home, Patriots team in complete disarray, no answers on offense. Like, it's hard to back them. And 10-3 might be a little low. The Patriots might get in, and you could see a 13-7. But the reason I put it that low is because I'm on the Steelers to win, and I'm on the Steelers to cover, and I think the under is going to hit as well. So I'm going to go with 10-3 Pittsburgh. I don't see them getting the offense going again this week. I really don't.
So I just did a quick check. It's going to actually be a decent night, 40 degrees.
Okay.
5% chance, so almost no percent chance of precipitation, 6-mile-an-hour wind. So going to be decent. Now, it is right there on the rivers. That was my joke earlier in the week. My lame dad joke was, we know there'll be 3 rivers at the game on Thursday night. Will there be 3 points from the Patriots, over, under? And it's actually a legitimate wager right now. If if it was a Super Bowl, you could make that on one of your like 20 props. You have to answer yes or no. No, I agree with you. Again, something wild and crazy could happen because it's the NFL, and just when you think you figured it out, a ball bounces funny, or you get a tipped ball, pick 6, strip sack, something. But I'm with you. I'll push everybody over to the 6 Rings and Football Things main feed for my prediction. But I'm pretty sure I'm in like week 4 of saying I have no reason to pick the Patriots the rest of the season. So until something changes, as you said, until they show me something, till Zappe shows me he's going to inject life, I'm not going to pick the Patriots. So Patriots, Steelers, Thursday night. Bill Belichick versus TJ Watt. Bailey Zappe, Mitchell Trubisky. Announcer voice. You can't even make this game sound good.
I don't even know if Al Michaels is going to show up to the booth. I think he might just hand it over to Tony Gonzalez or something.
Can you imagine? I mean, I know he's getting paid good money, but like how disciplined. Like, this is a guy that's done some of the greatest games in any sport in the history of the world over the last 40, 50 years. And now he's doing Mitchell Trubisky, Bailey Zappe in prime time on a streaming service like the under. And I mean, I guess the highlight of the game might be Kirk Herbstreit bringing his dog. Like,
seriously,
give us some footage of and I feel like they could do that, by the way. Remember, what was it, 2 weeks ago or whichever game? Giants, Patriots.
The Strahan
interview, Strahan. Like, I feel like they probably have something prepped for this game where they're like, if this becomes a real dog, let's put Kirk's dog on TV for 5 minutes and try to distract people and entertain people, because otherwise, what's the point? As Bill Belichick says, he doesn't even do streaming. So if he were home, he wouldn't watch this game.
Nope, he has no idea how to get it on.
Not sure how many people will be watching, other than those that utilize our friends at FanDuel to place a wager, maybe on the under, maybe on the Steelers, whatever you want to do. He's Mike Cadlick. I'm Andy Hart. This is Six Rings and Football Things, the Crucial Clashes edition. Patriots Steelers Thursday night. Watch and then listen to the Six Rings post-game show live on WEEI from 11 p.m. to 2 a.m., where we'll break down all the exciting action that you saw on your streaming service. Can't believe we did. Yeah.
Gross.